Welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to see so many of you joining us. And Kate and myself would like to introduce you to Pushing Up the Daisies, which is a Scottish charitable incorporated organization, not a religious one, but we're respecting all faiths. As you've learned from Tom's introduction, this is a talk about death and about the choices available to all of us. What comes afterwards, after death. And as we think most people are unaware of these choices. So I'll just give you a quick overview. I will introduce myself and Kate, the co-founder of Pushing Up the Daisies as well. And then we'll run after what we call it After the Last Breath quiz. We were hoping to do that as a Zoom poll, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. So we just have to do it like I'm showing you the questions, and then perhaps you can put the answer in the chat box. Then we will talk about a few of the choices we've come across and a few stories which we've experienced. And we will also be joined by another charity, Funeral Link, for a few minutes, which is a Dundee charity. Then I will show a few slides of the educational activity Pushing Up the Daisies runs. And then we'll have, we finish off with our key messages. And we should have some time for questions afterwards. So I can't see Tom is joining us. So we'll have to I hope I can manage doing the talk and the questions and the organize everything. So anyway, just a few words about myself, which just to say I'm a recent retired. So 2 years ago, I retired as a consultant in anesthetics and pain medicine. And I've always been, since I was a student, interested about death and dying. And as you hear from my accent, I'm not Scottish born and bred, but I'm from Germany originally. But however, I feel more Scottish by the years now. And the interesting bit is that all the choices we have in Scotland, what happens afterwards, do not exist in Germany. So I came across Pushing Up the Daisies a year and a half ago when I did their online course, which was run by Kate. And she was kind enough to ask me to join as a trustee. So I joined a year ago, and here I am, trying to spread the word about Pushing Up the Daisies. Kate, do you want to say a few words about yourself, how you came to be involved?
Okay, thanks, Dietmar. Yep, so I'm up in the northeast of Scotland, in Murrayshire, and I really come mostly with my own personal experience, but I do have 20 plus years experience as a community nurse and a Marie Curie nurse. So what I'm here to talk about is life, and life, particularly during the days between someone's last breath and their funeral. So that's a few days, but it's a few very important days, we believe. And so it's about how you can live well, and also hopefully how you can advocate for your patients and their families, so that they can live well too. Because what happens during this time can actually affect people for the rest of their lives. And depending on how their grieving process goes, I guess a lot of you are dealing with the physical and mental health effects of bereavement. And so what we're trying to bring is a bit of potential for really, addressing that in these few days. So hopefully we'll give you a few insights. And we can only give you a brief glimpse, obviously, in this short time. But just what I would hope is that we inspire you to maybe look into this a bit more and look into the possibilities during this time. And by this afternoon, hopefully, you'll have a bit more insight into the harms and the benefits that come from what happens during this time. So look forward to this hour with you.
Okay, let's start with our After the Last Breath quiz, and I'm going to share this screen with you. See that that works. Okay. Kate, can you see that screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, first question. And I wonder if you could put it in the kind of your answers kind of in the chat so we get an idea what people think about the answers.
I'll check the chat, Dietmar.
Okay, good. So the first question, is it possible to legally ensure how your funeral will be carried out? True or false?
Most people are thinking true, Dietmar.
Okay.
I like Sarah's answer. I would like to think so, but ... Some
okay,
false, but mainly true.
Yes. So what is the correct answer to this?
So the answer is that is false. It's not possible. We can say our wishes, but actually it's not legal. In a will, people tend to say what whether they want to be buried or cremated and any other wishes, but that aspect of a will is not actually legally binding. It's related to the fact that you cannot own a dead body. So yeah. So people have to make their best effort. You would expect your executor to make your best effort to do it, but they don't actually have to carry out your wishes. So you really need to have somebody that you trust to do that, and somebody that's able to do that set up. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Is it legal to take someone who has died in a vehicle so long as it's a van? Well, kind of forget about the van bit. Just, is it legal to take someone who has died in a vehicle, in your own vehicle?
This is a mix of true and false for this one. Maybe edging on the true. It's difficult. It's coming up fast here. Hold that question, Christina. Where would you go? We'll come back to that one. In question time. Yeah, okay, so it's a mix really, Dietmar.
Yep. And what is the right answer?
So the answer is true. Yes, it is legal for anyone to take someone in the vehicle. The laws, there's no law particularly relating to that, but the laws relating to that are the laws that affect, the rest of our life. So the particular law there would be causing offence, public offence. So just as you wouldn't run down the street naked, you would cover someone's body if you're transporting them. But so that's a kind of laws, but there's no particular law relating to that.
Yeah.
And any vehicle, yeah, Dean's, any vehicle, that's as long as it's big enough, obviously. But it's surprising how many vehicles actually are big enough. Certainly any estate cars. Yeah.
Okay, next question. But by the way, thank you very much for being so answering and engaging in the chats. I really appreciate that. Next question. If someone dies in a hospice or hospital, the most senior clinician has the authority to decide what happens with their body. True or false?
Yeah, a lot of false here.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. All false answers. Yeah, that's correct. Well done. That is false. Yeah.
The right answer is the next of
Scotland,
kin, is it?
in Scotland, the next of kin, or I mean, that in itself is not really a legal term, but the person who has the right to make funeral arrangements and has the right to decide what to do with the person's body. Obviously not if the procurator fiscal is involved, but if it's an expected death.
Okay, the next question is again about transporting. You must tell the police before transporting in your own vehicle someone who has died.
Yep, there's a mixture of true and false. False here, it's kind of halfway, I think, half and half.
So what's the right answer?
So that's false. Yes, there is no need to transport. I mean, to tell the police if you're transporting someone. And that's something just to be aware of as staff. You know, if you do come across this situation, we've been involved in a situation, it was at a hospice actually, where the family were all ready to take someone home, and but the staff got into quite a muddle with the staff wanting to call the police not really knowing what to do, and so it did cause a bit of distress. So it isn't necessary. Whether it's advisable, Dean's, is, you know, it depends what's going to happen at the other end of the phone. But yeah, there's no need to. There is no need to.
The next one, a body can be legally kept at home for a maximum of 7 days. True or false?
I think half and half, maybe. Erring on true. Not sure about time scales. Yep. So really, that's I can't believe they kept at home. Yeah, that's false. That's false. Yeah, because there is no time scale. That's in Scotland. There's no time scale. In some countries there is a time scale, but not in Scotland.
I just had to laugh. I just saw Sarah's comment. This shows how little we all know. Yes, it's not a common thing we talk about, is it? Okay, the next one. You need a funeral director to make arrangements for cremation. True or false?
This is legally, just to maybe add that in, Dietmar, legally.
Yeah. Okay.
Mixture. Maybe more false. Yeah, more false. Yes, that is false. Legally, you do not need a funeral director to make arrangements for cremation. The proviso there is that some crematoria, many crematoria are private businesses, and they can decide their own rules. And there are crematoria in Scotland which they insist that you do use a funeral director. You know, they'll only accept cremations from a funeral director. But there are also many that will assist people to do it themselves.
Yeah. And that's interesting because in Germany, it's a legal requirement. You cannot have a funeral without involving a funeral director. So, but that quite nicely does not exist in Scotland. The next one, people must be buried in coffins. What do people think about that one?
Yes, that's all false. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are aware of this, that legally that is false. But then again, there's some, you know, some local authority burial grounds which, you know, they have bylaws which will want you to bury someone in a coffin, and some don't accept people Some cemeteries don't accept people without being in a coffin, but it's not a legal requirement.
The last question, the average cost of a basic funeral in Scotland, funeral director, coffin, burial cremation, 2,800, 3,300, or 3,800. That's before the cost of living crisis.
There's a mixture here, a mixture, yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, so yes, the answer to that is 3,848. That's the average cost. Cremation tends to be cheaper than burial. But also that's the cost, the basic cost. With the cost of wake and flowers and all the additional things that generally come along with a funeral, the cost goes up to just nearly 6,500. That's the average cost in Scotland.
So the questionnaire should be gone now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's gone, Dietmar.
Okay, Kate, do you want to talk about your experiences?
Okay, thank you. Just to say, because I'm not sure if people, how many people here are from Scotland, to be honest. Just to say that generally in Scotland currently, at the moment, this is only in recent years, but at the moment, what happens when someone dies is that a doctor or health professional will verify or confirm the death. That's when, and then the doctor will write a death certificate. But and then that then is taken to the registrar to register the death publicly in the public records. But also the person's body will be taken to a funeral director's premises. And then from there, the person's body will be taken to the funeral on the day of the funeral. So that's what usually happens. A family can go and visit the person at the funeral director's premises. But it's important just to maybe hold the thought right now that this has only been happening in Scotland maybe for the past 60, 70 years as a tradition. And to the west of us in Ireland, it's quite different. And also to the east of us in the Netherlands, it's quite different what happens. And as Dietmar says in Germany. So yeah, what happens in Scotland now is kind of unusual. So hold that thought. So shall I tell a story? Shall I tell a story? I think I'll tell my own story. I think I'll start with, which is really what started me on this road of pushing up the daisies. So I cared for my auntie for quite a long time when she had dementia. I had always promised to take care of her. She strongly wanted to stay at home. We had many adventures trying to help her do that. And then one day she was taken in a crisis of care, really, to a local care home for assessment. And so we thought, okay, that needed to happen and she would come home. But one day when I arrived to visit her, I realized she was dying. This quite unexpectedly. She was in her 90s, and this happens more often than we might think, but it was unexpectedly, really, that she was dying. And actually in those moments while we were there, she died. So all my family had died in their beds. They'd stayed in their beds until their funeral. For me, that was completely normal, for which I feel very fortunate. And so I called the funeral director and said, okay, my auntie's died. Please, can you take her home? And he said, that's not normal, Kate. And I was thinking, well, what's not normal? Like, and he said, I wouldn't normally take someone home from a care home. But I am so very grateful to him that he did. He took her home. And she was home, and she came home with us, which happened to be the house she grew up in. But and she was in her bed within a couple of hours of her death. So she stayed with us. That first day, I tried to make her cups of tea. Anytime we were doing something, I think, oh, I wonder what Auntie wants. The next day, less so. And by the third day, when I went into her room, I just had a realization in my bones that she was dead and that everything was okay. And that has been a huge relief to me, you know, and because, you know, she's been here all my life. She's been in my life. She was a very important person. And to know that everything's okay, that she died is very helpful. And in that time, in those 3 days, I sat with her, spoke to her. The only change in her body that I noticed was that her skin became very beautiful and kind of ivory colored. So, and then on the day of her, the funeral director arranged everything, made all the arrangements for her cremation, which was private cremation at her request. And then on the day of the funeral, he came with a coffin and he put her in a coffin and we took her to the crematorium. So that's my experience, and it was a very nourishing and meaningful one to me. And my own belief is that we kept each other company while she got used to the fact that she died, and while I got used to the fact that she died. Yeah, yeah. So that's my experience. I'm also just thinking, Dietmar, about somebody that we helped recently, which was they called me for advice at Pushing Up the Daisies, and because their father had died at home after a kind of short illness, but they'd been caring for him, and the reason they called me was just to check that they had all the information they needed to care for his body. They knew they didn't want him to go anywhere. They wanted to keep him with them for a few days. But then they had expected he would go to the funeral directors and the funeral director would arrange everything. So I went to meet them, and they knew what they were doing. You know, they'd been caring for him when he was alive. So, you know, they knew how to care for somebody, and they had everything they needed there. Apart from I did suggest to them to cool his body. They had turned off the heating and opened the windows, but so they could cool his body. And they went to the supermarket, bought some cool packs, put them in the freezer, and that's what they used. And actually, with that, you can cool somebody's body as well as you can in a funeral director's premises. But anyway, they did that, and on talking to them about the process of what happens and how to arrange a cremation, they realized they could do it themselves. So they actually contacted the crematorium and arranged it. And the day before they were due to take him for cremation, they took him out into the garden and had a kind of private ceremony, just not really a ceremony, a picnic really, with his best friends. He had some very good friends and the close family. So they took him out under his favorite apple tree. They all had a picnic because they wanted to wait for 2 or 3 weeks. Well, I think it was actually 3 weeks in the end, because they'd family. It was a big family coming from all directions. So they wanted to wait for them all to come to have a funeral ceremony to celebrate his life. So they had this small private ceremony, which later they said had been really important because it was private, it was relaxed, it was time for them all to come together and just mark the moment of what had happened. They then took him in his car, which turned out to be quite important because cars had been quite important to him. And he had just bought one not long before he'd actually become too ill to use it. So for his family, that was really poignant that they took him in this car to his cremation. And then while he sort of over those hours, you can't tell when someone's being cremated, but after they had taken him to the crematorium, they then went to the local park near there and they all sat together and had another picnic actually, and just sat together and supported each other so quietly through that time. So that's maybe because that's people do worry now in Scotland. We have a new tradition only in the past few years, which is that funerals don't take place until 2 or 3 weeks after someone dies, and that's a discussion for another time. But I mean, it used to be within 5 days maybe, but still totally possible if you arrange something yourself that it can happen within a week.
Actually, I've been talking to the manager of the Dundee crematorium, who is, I didn't know, everyone thinks it's the council crematorium, but it's also private, a large organization which got, I think, whatever, 50 or 80 crematoriums all over the UK. And they said kind of they can do cremation within 2 or 3 days. It's more or less the funeral director's kind of requirements and busyness which holds up things. And so, but it can be done much quicker than it's often done. And also there's it's a new private funeral cremation near St. Andrews. And again, I've talked to them and they said they have, and they are new, there's only 2 years going. So they said they can easily accommodate somebody within 2 or 3 days.
I'm seeing the time, Dietmar, but can I just bring up a couple of points?
Yes.
Just for people, that something that I hadn't realised, because I worked as a community nurse, is the stories that people have told me since, running Pushing Up the Daisies, is that it can be really important. Well, kind of like for my auntie, it can be really important if somebody's been taken into hospital, usually or often in a crisis, maybe overnight, with neither the person who's ill or their family realizing that they're not going to come home again. It can be really helpful for them to come home again after they've died. So people are not aware of this, and that's something I wasn't ready for, was the regrets that I've had to, help people with, realizing when they realize they could have done that. Because often people are promised, yeah, I'll look after you, we'll keep you at home, you won't have to go to hospital. And people say to me, if only I could have cared for somebody that last time. And particularly carers, this taking things slowly and allowing people to keep their person in their presence, it can be most important for carers. If there's anybody here from children's nursing policies, the setup for paediatric services is that parents can continue to care for their child when they die, but there's not a recognition of this at all in adult care. But the coming back from hospital, that's something that really is important, particularly for people who have wanted to care. And being in the presence of someone's body after they die is not important to everyone, but it is very important for more people than you probably realize. It's only since people have started talking to me I've realized that. So, yeah.
Yes, I think also I learned only yesterday that there is what's called a cold cot. So in SCABU, so if the parents want to take the child home, they can do that in the cold cot. Have it at home rather than going straight to the mortuary and kind of like, it's kind of unimaginable for me as a parent or a child not to survive. But, some people kind of find that beneficial to take the dead child at home. Or some people, I think the hospice in Fife in, I've forgotten the name now.
It's Chaz, yeah, Chaz.
They have their specially set up. And of course, it's interesting that kind of in so many areas, kind of the services are so much more focused on the patient in pediatric services than in adult or geriatric services.
The other thing just to add in is people do worry about the transformation processes that take place. Some people call it putrefaction. I don't like using that word myself. We are designed with an absolutely incredible natural process to transform us so that we can all be living here. And but that process can be slowed down. Well, it is slowed down. That's why in a funeral director's premises, people would be put in a fridge, like in a mortuary, that you'll know. But actually, you can keep someone's body as cool as that, quite simply. We use ourselves because we use reusable stuff. So we use reusable packs like the physiotherapists use, that they can be either cooled in the freezer or heated up in a microwave. That's all you need to keep someone's body cool.
Thanks, Dean, for the comment in the chat. Okay. Is there anything else, Kate?
No, but better. I'm just realizing the time. I could talk all day, so I'll be quiet. We can take questions. That's the best thing.
I was hoping that you and Gur from Funeral Link will join us. And if he is there, I can't see him. But Ewan, can you unmute yourself and say hello? Put your camera on, but I can't see him.
I'm not seeing him.
Join us, but perhaps I can explain to people. This is. I don't know if people have heard of that one. Funeral Link. That's a Dundee charity, which helps people to avoid funeral poverty. So I have been in touch preparing for this talk with Margaret Hodge. And so she is a bereavement officer in Ninevels, sitting next to the chaplaincy, quite appropriate, I think. And anyway, she is so she knows about Funeral Link, but I've never heard of them before. And I think they have helped. Ewan told me how many people they've helped in Dundee, but they've helped lots of people. So not just kind of like support, which there is from the state, but also as a charity, they can support people and help kind of to avoid the poverty. And of course, the more you organize yourself, so the less you have to pay the funeral director, or if you don't use them, you have to pay any. And the cheapest way, if you want to have an unattended cremation, it's about, in St. Andrews, it's about £500. And an attended cremation, so where there's a congregation, it's about £800 to £900, I believe. And it's a bit more in Dundee. Interestingly, all the crematoriums have very different fees. So, and very different requirements. The St. Andrews, for example, they're happy to accommodate people's pets in the congregation, in the funeral hall, whereas Dundee crematorium, you only get half an hour. It's a quick service, and there are no pets allowed. So, but again, each crematorium has its own rules, and one has to find out about that.
Also related to that, Dietmar, for people to know that funeral directors have their own rules as well, you know. So if there is something that people want to do, or some of your patients' families want to do, you know, it is worth, you know, checking around with funeral directors, because some are not flexible, and some are very flexible. So yeah.
Yes, I think that's important, because some funeral directors are very strict about the minimum they want to provide, and whereas other funeral directors are very happy taking the deceased, the dead body home, or having them at home and then at the funeral parlor, and then taking them perhaps the night before the cremation or burial, taking them to the home again. So but again, not every funeral director is happy to do that.
Yeah, we don't really concentrate so much on the cost. You know, I'm more interested in the benefits and the harms of what happens. But it is especially now, it's becoming more and more relevant, the cost and the amount of funeral debt that is happening. And you know, and debt has its own effects on people's health. So it is important, you know, that when you might verify or confirm a death and say contact a funeral director, it's important really to know what you're saying there, and because people do have options. But the other thing that's been from stories that people tell me, that is not the time when the death is being confirmed, even to say to people there, if it's in hospital, yeah, you can take them home now, you know, you can. That's not really the time. It needs to be discussed before. you know, before, so that people know that's an option. Because so many people have said to me that they couldn't take it in, you know. People just think they don't know what people are in shock naturally. That's how our brains work. So so it's not a time to be trying to make especially big decisions like that about something completely new you've never done before in this country. You know, we don't have the experience at the moment, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth thinking about. And especially in the hospital, people can, I mean, even if maybe you were to say to people, you know, okay, now this person's body will be taken to the hospital mortuary, and you know, you have time to decide whether you might want to use a funeral director or whether you might want to make your own arrangements. You know, in that case, people have got, I'm not sure, I guess I know there's pressures in mortuaries, but there will be a couple of days, I would imagine, where people could then have a sleep. I always say to people, don't make any decisions until you've had a sleep, because then, you know, you can much better have access to your prefrontal cortex. You can make better decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a comment about the average cost, how much it has risen, but I don't think we have that figures, Kate. Do you know?
I saw the recent ones. It comes out every year, but a bit late. That's why those figures are a bit late. And it hasn't actually risen much.
Okay.
Also, there was something happened during COVID because there wasn't all the kind of extras that funeral directors do. That wasn't happening. And so the funerals did get a bit cheaper, I think, actually. Yeah.
There's
So, yeah.
one question or comment whether this option should be in what happens after a death booklet. So
There
families,
are options actually in the booklet, aren't they? I mean, it does say that, you know, it does say that you can arrange things yourself, but not really to the level of detail that people can, I feel anyway,
yeah,
that I feel people can really take in. You know, this is something to get this, for this to be helpful to somebody, it really needs health professionals to be explaining it, also kind of given permission for it. I know so many people turn to me when someone dies and says, okay, what's the right thing to do now? I'm always surprised by that question. Like the right thing, like there is a right thing that they need to be doing. So, so it does need support. People need support to do this for sure now, because it's not common. You know, in Ireland, people are doing it all the time, you know, it's what people do. But here, yeah, particularly for carers, I would ask you really. The other thing is that what you could be doing is advocating for your patients' families, because usually in a group of people who are around someone who dies, there are some people for whom it's not important to be with someone's body. They think it's morbid, they think it's horrid, they can't imagine it. And then there might be some people who are not talking, who are not admitting that their instinct is they want to spend a bit of time with the person. Usually, and that's usually the people that the kind of people that take things slower. Maybe they are the carer, they're numb, they're exhausted. And so it's about managing that situation, because it's the people who need the time that really need the care and the support.
there's another question in the chat. Can people go home after an autopsy?
Yes, yes, they can. Yep. The only kind of thing there is just to take care about because during an autopsy, people can, you know, the person's body has been in the mortuary, you know, on being examined for some time. So it might, depending on how it has gone, you know, it might already be starting to transformation process might have started. But once that's cooled, you know, generally that's not a problem, but that's just one of the things to take a wee bit of caution, just in terms of what is happening with the body. But yeah, we have taken people home for families, you know, help them do that, and that can be really important, because that's a traumatic time. If some usually, you know, that's an unexpected death, and it can be really important for people to regroup around someone's body at that point.
Okay, so I'm just going quickly through our activities as a charity, which is mainly education and raising awareness. So you should see the screen now. Is that Kate? Can you see the screen?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Hang on. I haven't pressed the share button. Okay. Can you see?
That's it. That's it now.
Yeah, good. Let me just there's lots of information on the pushingupthedaisies.org.uk website. I've done a screenshot. So if you click on the 3 horizontal lines, then it comes up with news, information, network, events, education, and about in contact. So the standard things. This is the course run by Kate. So you can either do over 9 weeks an intensive online course. I think 4 meetings, isn't it? Online. Yeah, it says it's 4 online meetings, which is excellent. So I did the course myself, and that's how I became involved. But of course, you can also do a self-paced module and at your own pace. I enjoyed the online course because there was a lot of discussion with other participants, which I found very helpful rather than doing that on my own. This is the daisy chain, so this is a group of volunteers. So we are currently about 15, as you can see, over different areas in Scotland, more towards the east than the west. And we've had we have a face-to-face meeting, our recent annual meeting in the Dundee Community Garden building. And as you can see in the background, that's Ninewells Hospital there. There was a lot of practical bits and discussions, and that was very useful, not for people just to meet, of course, online, but actually to meet face to face. If you want to do everything, if you want to know everything there is to know about this, there's a book. So Kate and together with Lynn Carruthers, they published this book, Slow Down When Somebody Dies. They published that a year ago, and it's an excellent resource to find out all about the do's and don'ts and all about the choices are available, and containing lots of stories again, of course. Do you want to say anything else about the book, Kate?
No, I think that's it. But it is a resource for people who do want to learn what's involved in taking charge of someone yourself, so that people can make, the judgments about what's right for them.
Yeah. And last, it's the key messages. And so one of the key messages is about slowing down, because all the needs are different. And as Kate said, there is no rush to do anything. And yes, I think sleeping after such a momentous, having a sleep after somebody's death, and then seeing what feels best to do is advisable, and nothing, even without any cooling, nothing will happen within 24 hours or so to the body. The next one is choose, because of the different emotional and psychological needs. There are lots of different choices, as you heard from the stories, and some people like to have the body at home, and some people feel much more comfortable in releasing the body and having the body looked after by the funeral director in his parlor. Then plan as much or as little of the funeral you can be involved, and it can be, yes, if you haven't thought about it beforehand what to do, it's difficult to to arrange all these things, and then yes, I think it's good then to find a funeral director who can help you to do, but knowing that the ultimate choice is with you. Adjust. That's what Kate was talking about, adjusting to that the person has gone, and that just being aware that takes time. And yes, if you want information, there is an information number about contacting a local daisy chain, or there is a national number for people to find out if you have specific concerns or questions. Good. These are the key messages. Any other questions people have? If people have want to put it in the chat.
Thank you for your comment, Deans, and that'd be interesting to see the Tayside policy, if it, care after death policy.
One Ellie is asking about how typically that would happen.
So, well, that can either be through a funeral director. This is the simplest way to ask a funeral director to do it, or you can do it yourself. Or ask, a friend, a family member to do it. The little caution there I would say is if you are very close to the person who has died, maybe not to be driving yourself, but you can be with them. Maybe ask somebody else to drive for you. Well, certainly if it's very soon after someone dies, you've got to take care of yourself. But yep. So in our experience, I've sort of been with people collecting their loved ones from the mortuary. Mortuary staff are really helpful as long as they know you're coming and they know, you've arranged a time. They have been really helpful around here. They have a trolley, which you can use just to take someone into the back of a vehicle. It can be helpful to have a coffin there ready to put someone's body in, but you certainly don't need that. I would say you need a board. You need to have something rigid that you can put someone's body on, so that that makes it easier. But someone's body coming from a mortuary will be, well, it depends on the hospital, but it tends to be wrapped in a sheet and it will be in a body bag usually. But when I've done it, we've taken the person out of the body bag in the mortuary, and they've just come back wrapped in a sheet on a board. So we've taken a board with us. I mean, we're very fortunate here because we've got a willow coffin maker close by, and she makes like willow stretchers, which you can put someone's body on. But anyone, I've also known people that have used a cut down door. So anything, as long as it's a piece of wood, that's rigid, makes it easier.
Yeah, naturally useful. It's a company also in Maroneer Forest. They produce beautiful willow coffins.
But they'll deliver. They'll send you. But I mean, you can buy coffins online. It's on eBay. It's thanks. Is there any questions? Are we okay for questions, or do we have time? It's because it's 10 to. Yeah, we can advise people. Yep. To take internationally it's difficult because well, it's not difficult, but yeah, internationally, like to repatriate somebody's body is there are regulations around that. But to move from England to Scotland, you need a form from the coroner. But to move from Scotland to England, you don't need any forms. If you take, people if they're being buried back in England, you don't need any forms to do that. Yeah.
Thanks, Deans, for putting on the link for families who wish to take their child home after death.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good.
So in Scotland, Jeff, in time to come, many people will continue to use a funeral director to but that doesn't preclude being taking time in the presence of someone's death. You know, like my auntie's situation, we used a funeral director, to be honest, because at that time I didn't realize we could have put her in the back of our van and done it ourselves. I didn't know that. So now I know that to arrange a cremation, actually, there's 2 forms to fill in, which you get online, which are actually very relatively simple forms compared to many of the forms we fill in our lives. And but I didn't know that at the time. So we used a funeral director, but still we could be in the presence, have her with us, you know, in that days before her funeral. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for everyone attending. I'm delighted. I thought there might be only a handful of people, but when I checked, there's about 60 people or so. So that is lovely. And I really appreciate you all giving your time and hearing about Pushing Up the Daisies. So thank you very much. Thank you, Kate.
I would just say, Dietmar, as well, that we do give CPD kind of education as well to different. We've given it to hospice staff, and we do a session for undergraduate nurses. And so, if any teams, if anybody wants either online or in person training, particularly nurses, if any nurses want some participatory training hours, we're happy to do that. And so, yeah, get in touch with me. Also, if there's anything come up that you're thinking after this, oh, what about this or what about that? Please, just contact us. There's emails on the website, phone numbers, because, what our wish is for you to be confident enough to be able to pass this on to your patients' families and to give them real options, that this is possible. Yeah. And for all your own family, friends.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Kate. And thank you for being so vocal in the chat, especially in the quiz. I was wondering how that would work, but I'm delighted.
Well done, Dietmar, here.
Thank you.
Technology, we've done it.
We've done it less than an hour.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye-bye.
you for being here.
Bye-bye.